Hi everyone, I'm Scott Schneider. This is Stereo Niche. Hey, this week I'm going to go back and talk about another Kenwood, the KR-6600. Stick around. Okay, so the Kenwood KR-6600. So this was a series that Kenwood had from 76 to 78, and they had a complete model line of these. It started out all the way at the 2600 on the low end. I think that was 18 watts, and then went all the way up to the 9600, which topped out at 160 watts. So quite a beast. This one is third from the top. It's actually, past the midpoint of the range of all of them. This one is a 6600 at 60 watts, and then it retailed for $450, by the way. And then there was a 7600 at 80 watts, and then it jumped all the way up. It skipped an 8600 for some reason and went to a 9600, which went all the way up to 160 watts. So a big jump there right at the very end of the top end of the model line. So these are I think it's probably was in that middle range, probably was one of the best selling volume wise of the series, because it had a good price point, had really just enough power to power most speakers, and probably has enough functionality. It doesn't seem to be missing too much from the top end other than the power. But it has a couple of cool features that I won't go through when I go through my scores, but it has these acoustic settings here that give a certain different, low end and upper end ranges, a little bit of boost, so it gives a little bit of a little bit of liveliness. And the other thing that's kind of cool, it has this mic switch here that lets you sort of adjust the volume, and it was for mixing. And I think, I haven't tried it yet, but I think it might be applicable to karaoke perhaps. Not sure, haven't tried it out, but I do plan to give it a try. We tend to like to do some karaoke in our house, so might give that a try and see how it works. Only bad thing is it's only one mic, but something we can get away with. But has the cool Kenwood look. I think it lights up very nicely. Nice clean look to it, not too overly busy, but it has to me a bit of a pioneer look to it. This model of Kenwood tends to look a little pioneerish, especially when the lights are off. Kind of has that blue face look to it a bit. But nice solid units. I will say the one thing about the maintenance of these, if you are into vintage, you've certainly gone through the pots cleaning at some point. This is no exception. You will need to do that periodically. The one thing about this particular one, there is a rod that goes through the selector switches here all the way to the back of the unit, and the switches are on the very back. And to get to those, you have to take off the side panels and this whole back panel to get to them. And once you do that, it's accessible, but it's a bit of work, and undoing. You just have to go through quite a few screws to get it done. The one thing you have to do, because it happened to me, and it happens to me every time it seems, when you disconnect the U connectors on the back from the preamp to the amp, you have to disconnect those before you can take the back panel off. And ask me how I know, but if you don't put it all back together, you'll turn it on and not hear anything. And you'll think you didn't do something right or connect something. And it's because you didn't connect those U connectors back in. So speaking from experience, put yourself a Post-it note or something to remind yourself, put those back in when you get it all back together. You do all that, and it's a great sounding unit. I think these are, again, just like they hit the sweet spot of source power and balance back then, I think they still do so today. And so great units to have if you run across one. Like most of the mid to upper Kenwoods, I think they're probably a good buy. So if you get your hands on one, I think you got a solid unit. So we'll do some up close shots now, and then I'll come back and we'll go through the scoring. You got to see it up close. You know, pretty cool looking, huh? These are nice. These are nice looking units. I think the Kenwoods, they have their own uniqueness, but this series, this X600 series, I think is pretty nice looking. And this is sort of that upper mid level. So it has I think a lot of good features. Being in the top three, this one is the 6600. Then there was a 7600, and then the 9600, which topped out at 160 watts. So way up there. So this being, top three of the model series, I think there were about 5 units below this one. So it went all the way from like 18 watts, all the way up to 160. So they squeezed in quite a few different models in that particular series. So let's dig into the numbers a bit. So on the power side of things, this was rated at 56 watts. So at that rating, it gets 15 points. I did look and see and confirm that it did have a rating for a 4 ohm load. It didn't show a power rating with it, but it does show that it can handle 4 ohm speakers. So with that, it gets an additional 30 points. Moving on into phonos, has 2 phono connections, so gets 10 points each, so that's another 20 points. Additional connections has 3. It has an auxiliary and then 2 tape inputs. So for that, it gets another 30 points. Has balance, loudness, bass, and treble. So for each of those, gets 5 points. It has some nice control there. Didn't give it any points. It does have some acoustic switches here to give it a little more emphasis on some different ranges, but that's sort of a bonus feature here. So it didn't get additional points for that. Moving on into high-low filter. If you're going to make recordings, nice to have that feature. Gets an additional 10 points for that. Moving on into the pre-out amp in. I mentioned that earlier. Don't forget to connect those again if you go to clean it. But because it has the feature, it gets 20 points. And does have, is available, a wood cabinet. Unfortunately, I don't have it, but it is out there. They are on some units, and I think they look pretty cool. When you have the wood cabinet on these, to me it looks a little bit, in that case, that particular cabinet looks a little more Marantz style. So to me it has a little more Marantz look when it has the cabinet on there. Let's see, moving on. ACN connections has 1 switched and 2 unswitched, so it gets 10 points each. And then lastly, it has a capability of 3 speaker inputs. So you can have 3 sets of speakers here, lots of functionality, lots of flexibility. So that's nice. So for that, it gets 30 points. So when we tally it all up, it came to 215 points. And I thought that was pretty good. Being the, sort of upper mid-level, I kind of expected it to be around 190, 195, but has a few features that they sort of gave to the top 3 models that they didn't give to lower models. So this got a couple of features that they considered high-end at the time. So great unit. I think if you've got one of these, you're sort of kind of enjoying it. Again, can handle most speaker requirements. It's 60 watts. You got right there on the cusp of just enough. But you can just if you have a speaker that's more demanding, there's a little few and far between. So this will handle most speakers, and I think you'll very much enjoy it. So that's kind of it. That's my summary here. I hope you guys found that enjoyable. And let me know if you guys have these. I think these were fairly popular. I think there's quite a few 9600s out there. So let me know what you guys have and your experience with it. Want to keep up? Make sure you hit subscribe. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in.